What's going on, guys? Kalip's Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Cricket Ovation 2 and going over what kind of value you get when you spend $129 on this phone. Now, keep in mind that $129, while being the original price of this phone, may not be the exact price that you pay because this information is always changing. But that being said, in this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know about this phone to give you a good idea of what kind of value you actually get out of this phone for the price range it's in. Now, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. But with that being said, let's get into the video. So this phone has a 6.82-inch LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 263, and an aspect ratio of 20.5 by 9. So it's a pretty large display. There's no question about that. And this is going to be great for content consumption. So if you're streaming a video, viewing a photo, even reading, all that stuff is going to be great on a display of this size. And it's not every day that you'll find a phone in this price range that has this big of a display. So that's a real good thing if you're planning on getting a phone mainly to stream videos and do a lot of that stuff, then this phone could be a really good choice. So this phone has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which isn't too much. Honestly, if you're going to be keeping a lot of stuff on your phone, you're probably going to want more, because while this phone does have microSD card expansion, much like pretty much every other Android phone besides one of the Google Pixel phones or something, storing most of your stuff on a microSD card isn't exactly ideal. And if you're doing things that take up a lot of space, you're probably going to want to store more stuff on the device itself for simplicity's sake alone. And you can't even put apps on microSD cards anyway. So if you are more of a power user and you have lots of apps, lots of data in general, you're probably going to want to get a device with more storage. But if you're not a power user, if you're just an everyday user who doesn't have a whole lot of stuff, then it should be okay. Now, there's no wireless charging with this phone, no surprise there. Unfortunately, pretty much no phone that's not a flagship phone has that feature, but we do get a nice fingerprint scanner right here on the back. Now, this phone does not have face unlock, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but it's not too bad since we do have that fingerprint scanner. Real quick, I'm going to do a demonstration of the fingerprint scanner so you can see how it works. There we go. Let's do that one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, this fingerprint scanner is real fast and responsive. No issues here. Now, taking a look at the rear camera setup, we got a 13 megapixel rear camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. Up here in the front, we got a water drop notch for the front facing camera. This camera is 8 megapixels. In general, this phone does have a good camera setup, and the photos aren't too bad either. For video, we got a max quality of 1080p in both the rear and the front cameras. So again, not bad. Nothing crazy impressive, but also not bad. I do like that it has an ultra-wide camera. Now, if you're looking for a macro camera, that's the one spot where you might be disappointed here, because this phone, of course, doesn't have one. But other than that, I would say the camera setup for an entry-level phone is pretty solid. Internally, this phone is getting 3 gigabytes of RAM with the MediaTek Helio A22 processor. I ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on the phone, and it came back with a single core score of 149 and a multi-core score of 453. So if you're looking for processing power, you're probably going to be disappointed here. Even in this price range, you can do a lot better. So that is one huge downside of this phone. If you're doing anything beyond basic activities like sending text messages, making calls, light social media use, light web browsing, and streaming videos, you're probably going to want a more powerful device, because this is really not that much processing power, especially by today's standards. Even if you're on an app like Instagram, I have seen phones that are more powerful than this still struggle with certain features of that app. So I can just imagine what this would be like if you're on Instagram all day or something, or if you're playing a more high performance game. I seriously doubt this phone can even run Fortnite. And some of the other games that aren't quite at that level but still are a little bit more taxing on the processor, I really don't think this phone can handle that kind of thing very well. But if you're doing something really simple like playing Tetris, or if you're just streaming videos and using the phone just as a phone, sending text messages, making calls, that sort of thing, you should still be fine, and the processing power really isn't going to affect you a whole lot. Of course, if you have a more powerful phone, even that stuff is going to be faster, but if you're just looking for the basics, you are going to get by with this. Now, another pretty unimpressive area of this phone is the battery. This phone has a 3900 milliamp hour battery, which granted is not nearly the worst I've seen. In fact, the iPhone 12 only has a 2815 milliamp hour battery, and that's an actual flagship phone, so you can definitely do worse, but at the same time, I do think you can do a lot better even in this price range. So if battery is a priority for you, and to give you an example of when it would really be a priority, say for one reason or another, you have to use your phone heavily throughout the day, and you usually don't have a whole lot of time to charge it up. That's a situation where having a large battery would be a priority for you. Another situation would be if you like to get one phone and keep it for a really long time. Having a large battery is going to be important then too, because with a battery like this, down the road as it starts to degrade, it's going to really affect the phone's battery performance a lot faster than say a 5000 milliamp hour battery that's going to last a lot longer. So in general, if battery isn't a huge concern to you, again, like the processor, this isn't really going to have a huge effect on you. But if it is more of a concern, if you are in one of those situations where you could really benefit from having a large battery, then you're probably going to want to look at a different device, because even in this price range, you can still do better. Another thing about this phone is that it doesn't have NFC. Depending on what features you use, this is going to be either meaningless to you or detrimental. In case you don't know what it is, NFC is the technology behind contactless mobile payment services, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, Apple Pay. You need NFC for all of those. So if you do use those features, this phone is not going to be the one for you. But if you don't and don't plan on it, then this phone not having NFC is going to be completely meaningless. It's not going to matter. You can basically just disregard it. So in conclusion, what kind of value are we really getting out of this phone for the money? Honestly, for the price range, if it weren't for the huge display, I would say that it's about average, if not a little bit below average, in terms of the value you get out of this phone compared to others in its price range. It doesn't have a very strong processor, and it doesn't have a very big battery either, and it doesn't have NFC, but it does have a really large display, and there are not very many, if any, phones at all in this price range that have a display of this size, and the storage isn't that great either. So really, having a large display makes up for it. And if you're one of those people who doesn't use your phone for much beyond the basics, but likes to stream lots of videos, maybe read, or just take and look at photos, then this phone is still gonna give you a good amount of value. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you found this information useful as well. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next video.